No, because listen, oral sex is a much more personal activity. It is right in your face. Your face is something you look at every day. Your mouth is where you eat. It's where you speak. It's where you kiss your children.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, and this is the podcast for you, I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash Berserker Schlafly.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, or want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatthemovies.com and have a look. And at the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thanks so much for listening. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and share with a friend. That's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, you can subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Watchmen, and Lovecraft Country. You can find all that information and past episodes at shatontv.com. And finally, to hang out with us live all week long, follow and subscribe on our Twitch channel, shatthemovies.com/Twitch. There we play video games, host watch parties, and end each week with a Shappy Hour cocktail party on Friday night. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
So I think we can all agree that 2020 has been a challenging year for pretty much everyone. It doesn't seem like it can get any worse, and then you turn on the TV and it does get worse. So one of our listeners from across the pond, Ryan B., decided to make 2020 even just that much worse. He said, we need more Kevin Smith in our life. So he commissioned the 1994 Clerks.
Well, and my hero, Ryan B., because I love this movie, spoiler alert, writes in, "Hey guys, I first saw this movie at 16 after failing a majority of my exams at public school. My family was pretty pissed at me, and to add further fuel to the fire, I enrolled into a 2-year film production course at a nearby college. Not exactly my parents' dreams for me as a kid. I bloody well loved my time at that college, and I got to meet so many people from different walks of life. I was introduced to a range of films and auteurs of their crafts, such as Jean-Luc Godard to Ray Harryhausen. My mind was blown. That being said, I was still a punk-ass kid that desperately needed to express himself in a way that at the time would make sense to me. Cue that fat, lovable, passionate stoner, Kevin Smith. Clerks was recommended to me by a friend, so I ordered from a now-defunct Amazon rival, Play.com, which didn't verify the age on the cards used to make payments, which is where I got all of my rated 18-plus films. I related so much to the characters in this movie, from hanging on to previous girlfriends to thinking I was smarter than everyone else despite having just failed all of those exams. As fucking stupid as the jokes are in this, it was above all else honest with what it was wanting to be. Mindless stoner comedy whilst accepting the fact that at some point you have to get serious with your future and start moving forward. It took me a while to do just that, but I'm thankful of the time spent figuring out who I was and who I wanted to be. Big D is going to be amazed that I got all that from Clerks, isn't he? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't expect this to be a zero wipe, but I hope that when you watch it, you get to laugh and remember those stupid youthful days. Thanks for everything you guys do for this podcast. It's amazing to see how many of us love talking about our favorite movies, regardless of if they suck or not. P.S. Years later, I would end up being able to study abroad in North Carolina, work in the TV and film industry, and meet some personal heroes from that world, including Kevin Smith. Joke's on you, Mom and Dad. With love from Blackpool, England, Ryan B.
I'm feeling a lot of pressure here, guys, because one, anytime it's anybody from England, I'm still a dumb American. And so I think, oh, they're English. They must be very intelligent. And then secondly, Ryan knows about film. So now any critique I might have, I'm like, well, Ryan probably knows more about it than I do. So Ryan, I want you to know this is coming from Gene Lyons, dumb American.
But you have to remember, he likes Kevin Smith. That taught him a lot about his life, right? So we fit right in there. We can't be any worse than Kevin Smith.
Wow.
No way. No way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Clerks is a 1994 independent buddy comedy written, directed, and co-produced by Kevin Smith. Starring Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson, it presents a day in the lives of titular store clerks Dante Hicks and Randal Graves, along with their acquaintances. Clerks is the first of Smith's View Askewniverse films and introduces several recurring characters, notably Jay and Silent Bob. It was shot for $27,000 in the convenience and video stores where director Smith worked in real life. Upon its theatrical release, Clerks received generally positive reviews and grossed over $3 million in theaters, launching Smith's career. The film is considered a landmark in independent filmmaking and, in 2019, was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. So, Big D, Ash, we always ask where you were when this film came out and what your memories are. Big D, we'll start with you. What are your memories of Clerks?
Again, this is another easy one. This is the first time I've ever seen this movie. I've seen, of course, some of the scenes from it, but I've never been able to sit all the way through it, except for 2 days ago. So I really do appreciate the commission, Ryan B., because I guess I just need some alone time, some just quiet time to sit on the couch and just really not enjoy myself.
So you're telling me you've been wearing that Clerks t-shirt all these years without ever having seen the movie? You fucking poser.
I think this may be the first movie where I pull the card of Big D. I just think you're too old for this because I was super young. The first time I saw this movie, Kevin Smith was incredibly important to like my preteen and teen, even into like college years. I really loved his movies. This, of course, being the first. Now, I did not see Clerks first. I actually saw Mallrats first, which I think is pretty typical for somebody my age, but went back and saw Clerks and just loved it. I watched that, Mallrats, and yes, even Chasing Amy probably 100 times from middle school to high school. I watched these over and over again. I always thought Randal was hilarious. I thought Dante was sexy. I wanted to party and get fucked up with Jay and Silent Bob. And as an adult, I had not seen these movies since really college. So I was really nervous to go back and watch this one after the terrible rewatch experience I had a couple years ago with Chasing Amy. But I was pleasantly surprised, and I'm pretty excited to defend the honor of this movie against you two tonight.
So I just want to clarify here. I was a year younger than Dante when this came out. So I was the target audience of this movie. So Ashley, you're watching this and now in hindsight thinking, oh, this is what it was like in the 90s. You didn't know shit. You were in grade school in the fucking 90s. Okay, don't act like all of a sudden you were out there, in the street smoking.
Well, I was actually in the street smoking when I watched this, but I mean, you forget I grew up in New Orleans, but I mean too old in the sense that if I had watched this at 37 for the first time, maybe I would have a different opinion. So you watching this now, like grown up with a child and responsibilities, I think it's just a different perspective than if you watched it before you had that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to drop a bombshell on you, Big D. This was pretty much my teen years, man. I mean, I saw Clerks as part of my like alternative 90s teen indoctrination, and I thought it was super cool. And this is a landmark film. So again, I appreciate Ryan commissioning this as well, because one of two things has happened since I watched Clerks for the first time. Either I got old and the fire in me died, or I grew up and realized that I was a stupid fucking kid, because I thought this was a super cool movie. I was like, oh, cool. It's black and white. Oh, everyone's so irreverent. Everybody sounds really smart. I wanted to be cool like all the characters in this movie. And I think this was an era, this span of the 90s, where we all thought that we could be poets and rock stars and filmmakers, but there was this barrier to entry, right? I mean, Kevin Smith had to max out credit cards. He had to like put everything on the line to make this movie for less than $30,000. And if you wanted to make an album back then, I mean, I remember when Dante and the Infernos, put out our album, we had to save up all of our money all year to get studio time. There was a barrier to entry. Now, fucking any kid can just put shit out there with very little effort, and they get instant gratification from their small circle, and they think they've made it. And so for me, that bit of a time capsule there where they were still trying to make art, as dumb and high as they were trying to make art here. And they actually had to get their shit together to shoot these scenes, to fund all of this. And, Big D, you're saying that this isn't that accurate, and we'll get into it in the podcast. But to me, like, this was my friends at the coffee shop. This was my friends at the convenience store. And they were fucking idiots in hindsight. But at the time, I thought they were super cool. On that note, let's hit the trailer.
Salsa shark. We're gonna need a bigger boat.
Throughout history, they have been a part of our American life. Men and women who have made it their mission to serve their fellow man. They've worked hard enough. Isn't it time they had their own movie? Clerks.
This job would be great if it wasn't for the customers.
I don't bother them and they don't bother me.
I could do without the people in the video store.
Do you have that one with that guy who was in that movie that was out last year?
You should hear the barrage of stupid questions I get.
What do you mean there's no ice? You mean I gotta drink this coffee hot?
You'd feel a hell of a lot better if you just rip into the occasional customer.
You're a clerk, paid to do a job. You can't just do anything you want while you're working.
Hey, you open? No!
What kind of convenience store do you run here?
Miramax Films presents.
You think anybody can see us down here?
Why? Do you want to have sex or something?
Can we?
Clerks. Just because they serve you doesn't mean they like you.
You hate people.
But I love gatherings. Isn't it ironic?
Featuring new music by Soul Asylum, Corrosion of Conformity, Bad Religion, The Jesus Lizard, and music by Alice in Chains.
Dante Hicks, a quick stop clerk in New Jersey, is called into work on his day off. He is torn between two women, his current girlfriend, Veronica, and his ex-girlfriend, Caitlin, with whom he secretly communicates. Dante is distressed when he learns Veronica has given oral sex to 36 other men before him and engaged in snowballing with at least one.
So obviously, one of the big shticks of Clerks is the fact that it's filmed in all black and white. And it's not like nice black and white. Like, it's incredibly grainy, low budget, black and white. And like you said, Gene, I remember the first time watching, I was like, man, this is edgy. Like, this is cool, because it was in black and white. But watching this film, it kind of brings me back to a little bit of what you were talking about, like what true independent films were. They were this kind of new thing, and they had new filmmakers, much like Kevin Smith, that had a lot to say. And I would say from like 90 to like 2005 was really this golden age of independent filmmaking. This one sticks out to me. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but there's this independent film called The Puffy Chair that was the first thing that the Duplass brothers ever did. It's actually a really fantastic movie, and it's very much in this vein. There's like this offness almost to the way it's shot and to the actors. They aren't seasoned, they aren't polished. And you said we thought we could all be artists and poets. I mean, I thought I could be a philosopher, and like that's what like I was like inspired to be by films like this.
I already feel out of my depth on this podcast because I've never seen The Puffy Chair. I have no idea who the Duplass brothers were.
Yes, you do. You know the Duplass brothers.
What do they do?
You know the Duplass brothers. One of them's in
Yeah. I'm sure you know who they are.
My brain just went dumb. No, the that show Transparent about the trans woman that. Okay, well.
Yeah, again.
Never seen it.
You know them if you saw them because they've been in a ton of shit now.
Thank God you're just reinforcing our points here. Ash, I want to just say one thing. Raw does not equal good. Unseasoned actors does not mean they should be on screen.
Fired up.
I do appreciate the fact that they made this movie on like what you could max out one credit card. Or you could buy maybe a Chevy Citation back in 1994, but it doesn't make it quality just because they're trying to be edgy and I'm trying to reach my offness. I'm going to make a movie about a puffy chair. It doesn't mean that's good. You have other independent films that came out that were actually quality and thought out. This was haphazard and just thrown together.
I think the first example of that too is that opening smoking skit, right? So I was like, oh God, I haven't seen this movie in so long. And based on this skit, I'm like, this is going to be a long movie because there's the opening scene. If you guys don't remember, if you haven't seen this movie in a while, there's a gum rep from Chewlie's Gum. And he's at the store, at the convenience store, and he buys a cup of coffee and he's hanging out with Dante. And then every time somebody comes up and orders cigarettes, he then gives them a lecture on cigarettes and how bad they are for them. And he's like got, body parts of dead people in his bag. And then he gets the whole crowd riled up against Dante. And talk about bad acting. I mean, it's terrible, but also bad scripting. Who walks into a store and just asks for cigarettes? There are brands of cigarettes, and who's allowing this guy to just keep preaching in the store? Why aren't the smokers kicking the ass of the Chulies guy? If you get between me and my cigarettes when I was a smoker, I would fucking kill you. I need my cigarettes.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think there's two big scenes like that I thought were really funny growing up that just don't hold up at all. And this is one of them. I will say the thing you're talking about, though, about asking for a pack of cigarettes. So I used to go to this when I smoked for a long time and miss it terribly every fucking day. And when I used to go to the same convenience store, he knew what I wanted when I walked in. So he would pull down exactly like the pack that I wanted. I never had to order. So maybe that's what's going on here. But I will say this scene did make me very nostalgic for like the old convenience stores that I used to go into, and just smoking in general. I feel an insane amount of guilt when I smoke now because I know how bad it is for you. But my husband recently just started smoking cigarettes again, and I will not lie and say I haven't gone and taken a couple drags off of his. Like my whole body has like a physical reaction to smoking a cigarette still, even though I haven't smoked packs in a very long time. And so that comfort in that and smoking and like going to these convenience stores, it at least made me nostalgic for that.
You see, but the Chulies guy's got it all wrong. He's not going to make a killing selling 1 or 2 packs. He wants to hit the store. He wants Dante to say, I'm going to order 35 cases of Chulies. He'd be better off setting up shop out front, take out the smoke tar-filled black lung, and get the people there. You don't want to turn the store against you because they're going to say, fuck you, I'm not buying Chulies anymore.
I think we've established the scene was not well thought out, Big D.
No.
Well, and he's and he is kind of found out by Veronica. This is how we're introduced to Veronica's character, Dante's girlfriend. And I don't know about you guys, but the thing I remember the most about this movie was kind of I'll just say the unfair perspective of oral sex with women versus men. Like I was introduced to that very, very early because of this movie. Like this helped define for me a lot of the problems and many of the fights I would go on to have with multiple male partners about quote unquote your number, right? Because if somebody asked me my number, like how many people I've, fucked around with, that's a much different number than how many people I've had sex with, because I'm on Veronica's side here. I don't feel like oral sex is real sex. I gave head long before I had intercourse, and I feel I didn't lose my virginity, not the first time I went down on someone, but the first time I had intercourse. So I get that oral sex is a lot more personal for some people, and that's fine, but I don't feel it's real sex. I'm totally team Veronica here.
So I'm not saying I agree with Dante, but I totally get the blowjob stigma, because this is how it works in most guys' heads, including my own, is that if you're dating some chick and she got plowed by another dude, you're like, okay, well, she was getting as she was giving. It was like equal, right? But if she's just blowing dudes, you're thinking, okay, she's just giving them something and she's not getting anything. And so therefore she might be getting exploited or like using oral as currency. And it's illogical. And yes, I know that women can get turned on and derive pleasure from blowing a dude, but the illogical part of your brain, that nasty part of your brain that you want to deny exists, is telling you she was blowing that dude, so that guy got the best of her. But if she was fucking that other dude, then they kind of just, like, she was getting something out of it while she was giving him something. Again, I know it sounds gross. This is a look inside the dirtiest parts of a man's mind.
Yeah, but I think that you're overestimating the pleasure that I've gotten out of dudes that are quote unquote plowing me. A lot of them, there's not much pleasure that I've gotten out of that, because a lot of dudes are real bad at sex. But I think that it's just that double standard of like, because I have a dick in my mouth means that like I'm being exploited in a way that if a dude's got a vagina in their mouth that he isn't, right? Like I choose to do that. I've never not chosen to do that. And I just think it's a super unfair double standard.
No, because listen, oral sex is a much more personal activity. It is right in your face. Your face is something you look at every day. Your mouth is where you eat. It's where you speak. It's where you kiss your children. So, Gene, I want to ask you honestly, okay? If you were in prison and your roommate was going to have his way with you, and he said you have two choices.
Yeah.
You are either going to give me oral sex to completion, or I'm going to put your face in the pillow and I'm going to have sex in the back door. Which are you picking?
Oh, I think I'm going to disappoint you here, but I'm blowing the dude because he's going to rip my butthole up.
No, but you're going to have nightmares. You're going to see that dick coming at you for the rest of your life. You're going to see it. It would haunt my dreams. But if I put my head down, I could close my eyes and think I'm getting some kind of medical procedure. I can't unsee that dick.
You've clearly never been on the receiving end of a dick, because it's very different than just like burying your head in a pillow. Like,
no, that's in the ass. Yeah. If I was getting in the ass, I could close my eyes and pretend like something else was happening.
Something else was going in your ass?
Yeah, maybe it was a medical procedure.
The best lubricated ass in America, Big D.
Yeah, it's where prisons are known for having great lubrication. But here's another argument I'm going to make for you guys, okay? You're saying that only vaginal sex counts against virginity. If that is the case, right, anal sex is out, then no gay man has ever had sex. Every gay man is a virgin, and that's ridiculous. Every lesbian is a virgin. That is ridiculous. And Ashley, I find it just terrible for you to just label our LGBTQ community as all virgins.
I would like to point out, as Ashley's attorney here, that there was an introductory clause. She said, as a heterosexual woman.
Yeah.
Boom, baby.
Oh, boom.
I think that sex is different for all people. And I think as heterosexual women, we give head, we receive head, and we have either vaginal or anal sex. And for me, as heterosexual women, that's the catalyst for us to lose our virginity. I think that, for lesbians, it's different. I think that for gay men, it's different. And I just want to say, I appreciate your knowledge of the Kevin Smith catalog, because you just made the great argument he makes in Chasing Amy that has also stuck with me for all of these years, because it's exactly a huge plot point of Chasing Amy. But no, I mean, I'm sorry, guys. Like, head it's easier than sex sometimes. So,
of course it is. It's like Randal says, a woman that makes a guy come, that's just standard. But if a guy can make a woman come, that's talent.
I think Big D, you missed the golden opportunity to see Chasing Amy and the Puffy Chair in a double feature at your local.
Yeah.
It's
so assholes, because the Puffy Chair is a
edgy.
great fucking movie. It's and it's not even like a highbrow movie. It's a silly movie. So whatever.
Oh, so that's been Shat on blowjobs. But getting back to Clerks, though, I did want to point out the setting of the movie and how important this is. Now, naturally, Kevin Smith is writing about what he knew about, which is where he worked. But I think all of us had that convenience store friend. And if you didn't, you really missed out in your teen years, because that was the best kind of friend to have. I have a friend, Sonny, and he was the friend in our group who landed that 7-Eleven job. And when you think about it, the convenience store is like the greatest place to hang out if you're a kid in the 90s. It's open all night. So we were there 24/7. Fascinating customers. And we had strippers coming in. We had cops coming in. It was fucking wild every night. And then they only do their inventory on soda, I found out, or coffee based on cups. That's how they count what you sold. So you just bring one cup and you can just drink all you want all night. And so if you're a 16-year-old in Arizona, and this is like 90s Arizona, where this is like raising Arizona. Nothing was happening, right? There were no nightclubs. We were too poor to do anything else. We would just hang out at the convenience store all night. And it was some of the most memorable times and best conversations I've ever had.
Absolutely. I think the quick stop, the convenience store, the gas station store, it's a total lost art. And a lot of the films from this time period, I mean, this is a big part of them. I mean, think about like Encino Man and like the slushy scene. Think about like Heathers with the big gulp. Like, you could list again and again all these movies that took place there, because I think along with like the mall of the 80s and 90s, the convenience store is also a lost art that it's unfortunate that kids don't really get to experience anymore.
But what's fucking weird about it, too, is that convenience stores now are awesome. Like the QT has like a cafe in it, or a Speedway. You get the touch screen. You can order whatever food you want. They got the rollers. You got burritos, hot dogs. I mean, the food selection is fantastic. They're bigger. They're more friendly. They're well appointed. We should bring this back. This should be a thing now, guys. As soon as COVID's over, we're all going back to the convenience store. Well, Dante's best friend, Randal, arrives for his own workday at the video rental store next door. Dante repeatedly laments that he is not even supposed to be here today, while Randal neglects his job at the video store to keep Dante company at the quick stop. They pass the time engaging in philosophical discussions on a wide variety of topics. After several hours, Dante discovers that his boss has left on a trip to Vermont, leaving him to run the store alone for the rest of the day. Dante and Randal find a number of reasons to leave the store and slack off, from a rooftop hockey game with Dante's friends to an ill-fated wake for one of Dante's ex-lovers.
So, Jean, you talked about how they reminded you of some people that you grew up with, these characters. And it's the same for me. Like, watching Dante and Randal, like, I know these dudes. Like, they were some of my favorite people in my teens and early 20s. I've hung out with them. I partied with them. I've hooked up with people like this. Like, I love these kinds of guys. It made me really nostalgic for college and for staying up all night, like drinking and smoking and like just hanging out. And a lot of my high school friends that never went to like higher ed that were super smart, they remind me of these guys. A couple people like dropped out of Tulane along the way. Like, they became these guys and eventually became like managers of the Quick Stops. And I think these characters, when you talk about like, I know Big D made fun of me saying that they're raw, but like, this is authentic. Like, these characters are super authentic. And I think that if you had seasoned actors here, I don't think it would have worked as well, because a lot of the riffing that they do and just the way they carry themselves, I think that that's what makes it so real.
Okay, so at this point, I think I want to clarify my stance, right? The characters, yes, we all knew these people, but these characters have a trait that no one has. Kevin Smith's dialogue, it is rapid fire and it lacks any kind of authenticity, the way normal people talk. Normal people don't sit out there and write out like an endless string of witty retorts that they can immediately drop on whoever they're having a conversation with. Every time that Dante would finish a line, there was no natural pause. So it is just immediate rapid fire back and forth. And I don't know if it was the actor who was just painful, that is inexperienced. It felt like he had memorized the lines, and when he would get the break, he would just immediately rip through his lines. This is not the way normal people talk. And if people in my life did have conversations like this, that everything was planned out and their replies were planned, I would fucking walk out of the room.
So a bunch of people listing out like one-upmanship and witty retorts. I mean, it kind of like describes what we do with this podcast. Like, I mean, like that's what podcasting is like a constant conversation on like one-upmanship. And I know that this is going to be a shocker to everybody, but I was pretty insufferable in my late teens and early 20s. Like, I very much like to hear myself talk. I very much felt like I was the smartest person in the room, and everybody around me did as well. And like, we had these conversations where we didn't actually listen to one another. We were just talking at one another and philosophizing while wasted. So maybe should have been some breaks here and there, but you say no one's actually listening. I mean, I've been in conversations where nobody was listening to each other. We were all just talking.
I mean, I think podcast is a good kind of metaphor for this as well, because when you think about when people are listening to us on Shat the Movies, and I'll like write out something I think is just fucking brilliant insight or the funniest fucking thing I've ever thought of, and I'm thinking all week about when I get to drop that line in the pod, and people are like, Big D's so funny because Big D just goofed on the name of a movie or something like that. I'm like, oh, fucking cool, you know, because it's those genuine moments that people find the most funny. But I agree with both of you in the sense where I did have friends exactly like this who talked exactly like this. And yet at the same time, when I'm watching a Big D, my mind was going to the same place where I was like, these people are fucking insufferable. I don't want to hang out with these guys at all. And the part that struck me as the most inauthentic was the roof hockey. You know that somebody had the idea, probably Kevin Smith, that we're going to have a roof hockey scene. But they're like, how do we get it to happen? You know, and they're like, okay, well, you know, we'll just have that he had another hockey game planned out and they had to move it to the roof. It makes no sense on so many levels. Why aren't they playing in the store or in the parking lot? Why can't they just fucking reschedule it? When I saw how many people showed up for hockey, I thought it was going to be a full hockey game. I'm like, it's like 4 dudes. Just say we're going to do it tomorrow. And then they didn't even do a good job making the hockey exciting. It was like there was nothing happening. It was a bunch of dudes clustered together wagging their sticks around. It was weird.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess this shows my age now watching this, because all I kept thinking is, this is so fucking unsafe.
Mom.
Like somebody's, total mom moment. Like somebody's going to go rolling off the side of this. There's no, guard there. They're just going to go rolling off the side, chasing after some ball with their swingy little stick. I know nothing about hockey, guys. And he would, fall off the roof and die, which is a totally different movie, but it's pretty stupid.
No, Ash, I think that was a lost opportunity. That would have made the film much more enjoyable. Have someone go off the roof, split their head, give us actually something to cheer for. Woo! Okay. Because for me, it's ridiculous. I know that Kevin Smith just wanted a reason to get dudes in hockey jerseys because that's what he loves to do. The roof has all these vents. There's AC units. The wall is only about 2 feet high. In my younger days, I used to love playing some street hockey in gym and in high school and also after school with some friends. Every time you would shoot on net, if that was not in the goal, that was going down the street and into the gutter. It's a ridiculous premise. And that's the problem with Kevin Smith. He gets an idea in his head and he doesn't think it through. He just says, whoa, this would be great. Let's get him on the roof. And then he's like, where do we go from here?
Well, one thing that I think he does get right here, though, Kevin Smith, is that people are total assholes to clerks. So people like Dante, people like Randal, whether you're in a gas station, whether you're at a restaurant, people are just kind of dicks to individuals in the service industry. And I think that, I've seen through the years these terrible situations where people like at another table or people in front of me in a line, they treat people like they don't even exist, like they don't matter. They say things to them that they would never say to a random person on the street. And I think he does capture that really well, that kind of in general, customers are just, they're assholes.
When I was 16, I was so excited to get a job at Arby's, and they gave me one like denim blue, like button up shirt and a name tag. And I worked the fryer, so that shirt would stink like fries immediately after a shift. So every night I would go home and I would wash that shirt and iron it, come back with pride and put that tag on, and I would work my ass off exactly by the book. And then slowly friends of mine started getting jobs at the same Arby's. So now it was like a couple guys from the band, a couple guys that I used to go like goth clubbing with. And suddenly there was like 5 or 6 of us there and nobody else gave a fuck, right? They're eating chicken tenders straight out of the fryer. They're drinking free sodas. They're eating turnovers. Nobody gave a fuck. And I realized, yeah, man, fuck customers and fuck Arby's. They don't give a shit. We can do whatever the fuck we want here. It's a goddamn zoo. And I think that Fast Times, had it all wrong. Like, this is the culture that should be celebrated. And now when I go to a Jack in the Box at like 1 a.m. and I'm fucking drunk in the passenger seat and I notice that all the crew is just fucking around back there, it makes me so happy. Because I'm like, yeah, guys, you're making minimum wage. Have a fucking party. Have a good time.
Yeah, and I will agree with you. Most of the time, I think everybody should work a service job, whether it's waiting tables, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a cashier. I think it's an important part of just letting you see what these people go through because they suffer. And I agree, Gene. Most people, most customers are assholes. They're self-absorbed. They want to get in and out. They don't care about you. They think you're a piece of shit for working these jobs, and they're not afraid to hide it. But Randal, he is an asshole to every single person. He deserves people to treat him like shit. In real life, okay, this movie takes place in Leonard, New Jersey. In real life, pre-cell phone, he would have had his ass fucking kicked. He would have opened his mouth to some dude in Jersey late at night who'd had a couple too many drinks. They would have waited for him out in the parking lot, and they would have beat his bitch ass senseless. He would run his mouth once, and that would be it. So Randal deserves every single thing he gets.
And he's not just shitty to the customers, like he's shitty to Dante. I know this friend. I have this friend. So Randal listens to Dante, logs everything that Dante is saying in his head, and then he weaponizes it against his supposed friend. The King Bee does this shit to me all the time. If I'm upset, he's like, what's up, buddy? Like, what's wrong, man? Like, whatever. He'll listen to what I'm saying. He acts like a shoulder to cry on. And then he will turn around at the worst times and use that shit against me, especially if women are involved. I don't know what the motivation is here, but if you guys, I think all of us have a friend like this. I don't know why the fuck they do it, but Randal is that guy. And so again, talking about the authenticity, Ash, we say we know these people, we identify these people. Randal is a real guy. He might be a guy that's getting his ass kicked, but he's a real guy.
Yeah, and it is sad that you have to, keep certain information safe that you can't open up to everybody. And that's exactly what I'm going to try to do with our listeners here right now, because we are a family. We're a big Shat nation. We open up to each other. So, Gene, I want to know, because in this part of the movie, we get to another one of Kevin Smith's great ideas. We're going to talk about some dude sucking himself off, right? So I want to ask you honestly, Gene, have you ever attempted to suck your own dick?
I mean, not like attempt, yes. Effort, no. Like, I mean, there was, I think at some point when I was like, 10 or 11 years old, I probably went like, nope, that's not working. But I didn't like get on my back, put a pillow under my butt or anything like that. Like, but I think in the bathroom at some point, I've like probably like leaned forward and seen it and been like, no, that's definitely not going to happen.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm glad you said that because I did as well. But I did try the pillow. I did try the legs over. But it didn't work. But it was still worth an effort, like you said. So Ash, I know you could not attempt to pleasure yourself, or if you did, you'd be like in Cirque du Soleil. What? No, pleasure yourself orally.
Oh, okay.
Some like the people in the contortionists in Cirque du Soleil. Whenever I go to those shows, I'm like, I know she could do it. So Ash, I know you can. But, did you have any hijinks or anything go wrong when you were first exploring your body, as a young lady, blossoming in a religious household?
In a religious household? No. I don't think so. I mean, I think that these like mishaps, I think we talked about this on another pod. I think that they're fewer and far between with girls than they are with boys. I mean, I lost my virginity pretty early, so I wasn't like solo exploring for very long. I mean, I will say like I heard lots of rumors and didn't try many of them out. I mean, I guess maybe like a shower head thing that probably happened somewhere along the way, but no, not really. Never tried to suck my own dick either. So
it's just good hygiene, I think, is the shower head thing. I don't
nice.
think it's really is that anything. No, I mean, I mean, and the thing is the way that none of us have Big D is that we wouldn't be having a podcast or jobs or families. Like if I get to suck my own dick, I'd disappear off the face of the earth and be like, I'm good. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. I
should be living under an overpass in LA.
Oh, but you imagine the shame you would feel the first time you did it. I think there would be some shame involved.
I don't think
it would be any different from jerking off.
No.
Oh, again, it's right there in your face. I think it's a whole different beast.
I think you have a penis phobia. I think that's what this is.
Well, Ash, think about it also. It might be a mouth phobia because he also, like, the way he described it when he was saying with the blowjob thing is like, food goes in there. You kiss people with it. Like, yes, we're familiar with what a mouth is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of like awkward approaches to sex, Ash, you mentioned that the blowjob thing was kind of the most memorable moment of the movie for you. I had all but forgotten most of this movie because I saw it when I was a teenager and, decades now. Berserker, that's just become a part of my vernacular. It's a joke that stuck with me for like 26 years. And I wish the Berserker would have just gone longer as a joke because they spent a lot of time in this movie on jokes that didn't really hit. But Berserker, I still find myself singing the song anytime somebody says the word Berserker. It's just in my head. It's so irresistible.
It is. It was my ringtone for a while for two specific friends. Like, you remember that time period where like you could like snap like a part of a song and it was your ringtone like in the early 2000s. And so like every time these two dudes would call me, it would be like, do you want to suck my fuck berserker? Like that's what would play out like all the time. Like, so it's pretty classic. And I will admit when I watched this, I got asked to go in the other room because I kept singing this while cooking because it's just like, I can't help it. It's just so incredibly catchy and it's fucking hilarious. It's hilarious. I mean, you got at least like this part, right, Big D?
Oh, so yeah, I do. I love Berserker. I thought it was great. I loved all of Jay and Silent Bob's, like all their buddies and them, out in front of the store. I thought it was great. And it made me feel guilty because I've openly hated Jay and Silent Bob for my entire adult life. I have hated them in a David Blaine kind of way. The way that I hope David Blaine's, like his stunts go wrong. When he did the balloons and he flew around, I'm like, come on, let the balloons pop. I hated Jay and Silent Bob, but in this movie, I can see their original charm. They're young, they're funny, they're different. I wish we spent more time with them out in front of the store than inside the store. So I will cut them slack if we ever do another movie that they appear in, again, because they've made a career out of being Jay and Silent Bob, so we'll probably see them again. But I thought they were really endearing.
Yeah, have I got news for you, Big D? Someone else had that idea too. Kevin Smith. When he made some Jay and Silent Bob movies.
Yeah.
Well, despite Veronica's doting on him, Dante chooses to rekindle his relationship with Caitlin. However, Caitlin is traumatized by an incident in the Quick Stop bathroom. In the dark, she has sex with a person she thought was Dante, but who is actually a customer who had died of a heart attack while masturbating to a porno mag Dante provided him. Caitlin leaves catatonic in an ambulance.
So I'd mentioned this before. I think part of my problem is that Kevin Smith, maybe this is just early on, he gets an idea in his head. He thinks of a funny moment, and then he turns that into a scene. So the scenes aren't developed organically. That takes the characters from point A to point B. They have some kind of a growth. He says things like, oh man, you know what? Why don't we have a guidance counselor who's checking every single egg? That'll be a great scene. Let's have a guy who comes in and talks about tabloids and about aliens. Oh, let's play hockey on the roof. It's ridiculous. And it's sad because he does have some honest, funny moments. When the customer comes into the video store, and of course you have Randal sitting up there with his legs on top of the counter. He's reading the newspaper, and he gets her. He says, I don't like the ruse, the trick you're playing upon me. I got a little chuckle out of that. So they're funny. So he can do it. But most of this movie feels like gag, set up, goes nowhere. New gag, set up, goes nowhere. And it was tiring.
Yeah, I agree with you. That shell shock scene with the counselor, it made no sense. I felt bad for the actor who had to try to pull it off and make it funny. But by far, the most far-fetched and horrible decision they made was, Caitlin fucking the dead guy in the quick stop. Like, we get it. You're edgy. Like sex with the dead guy, dead guy boners, bathroom sex. Sure. Okay. I see what you're attempting here, but here's the thing. You have two options when you're going to try making fucking a dead guy funny. You could do like early 2000s movies, like American Pie style stuff where you show it and you make it fucking wild. It's got to be way the fuck over the top. And you go, okay, there was a payoff there. Or you don't show it, but you have to have an actress that is so good that we believed it. They got to sell it. And they strike on both of these. They don't show us, and then they have the actress who plays Caitlin. She's just not fucking good enough. And so I don't believe that it happened. And it ends up being 10 minutes of wasted screen time.
And again, my mind has become a bit of a blur with 180 some odd movies we've done. But Weekend at Bernie's, there is a scene where Bernie's girlfriend goes up to Bernie's room and has sex with him. And I think the two guys are sitting outside and they can see the silhouettes, and they're terrified that their ruse is going to be exposed and people are going to know that Bernie's actually dead. And the scene's funny because we're watching it with them and we're seeing the silhouettes. Here, she comes out and I'm feeling bad for her. She's traumatized. She's going to be fucked up, right? And what does Dante do? Dante, who proclaims his love for her, he's been pining for her. He doesn't even go with her to the hospital. He closes the damn store to play hockey on the roof or go to a wake for one of his classmates. Get in the ambulance, go to the hospital and take care of her. Fuck him.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the second thing that I was mentioning that doesn't hold up well. I just think it's a super shitty way to end Caitlin's character, who I think is a fine character, and I think she brings like a little bit of fresh air to the plot once she comes in to interact with Dante, and it also just like logically makes no sense. Like maybe if the guy was like a doppelganger for Dante, but he's got like this beer belly, he's like balding. Like, does she not touch him at all while having sex with him? Like, is his dick a carbon copy of Dante's? Like, you would know, like touching his body, that this is somebody else. I just think it's completely bizarre.
All right, dumb Gene question here. You can tell dicks apart in the dark?
I mean, I can tell size difference. I mean, Dante's a big dude. I'm assuming he's got a big dick.
If there were two dicks that were roughly the same size, though, would you know by other characteristics? Like, are they that different?
Like not being able to see them?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they curve differently.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, no, maybe. I mean, there's some similar dicks, right? Like there are, but like they're not, I mean.
So if we lined up like 10 similar sized dicks to Tom and we had you sit on them in a dirty bathroom in a Quickie Mart, would you be able to tell which one was Tom?
Yes.
Well, she'd probably know which one was the guy that was alive. That would probably be easy.
That too. Yeah. But speaking of Caitlin, though, I do think that we talked about the male characters and how relatable they are. I think the same is true of the two main female characters. You've got Caitlin and you've got Veronica. And I think that most women, especially of this age group, like early 20s, they boil down to a Veronica or they boil down to a Caitlyn. So, you've got your Veronicas that are like little, ready to settle down, like the wifey type. And then you've got your DTF fuck girls like Caitlyn. And they're the ones that aren't ready to settle down. They're the ones that are, going to manipulate you and maybe not be exactly what you think they're going to be. And I think that that's when the movie gets interesting, is when Caitlyn shows up and we get to see that differential between Veronica and Caitlyn. And that, again, is why I hated the, fucking the dead guy scene so much, because it just kind of took her completely out of that equation.
So this is one of the cases where watching it as an adult, or whatever I am at this point in my life, as you said, Ashley, as opposed to someone in their teens. When I first watched this movie, I would have been like, wow, Caitlyn, she's a smoke show. Dump Veronica. She's such a drag. Go out with her. But now as an adult, I'm like, oh my goodness. She took the time, in between classes, went home, made lasagna from scratch. As an adult, I'm like, oh my God, that's marriage material. If a girl made me lasagna back in high school or college, I would have thought it was just whatever. Now as an adult, I can appreciate the effort.
Yeah, if she did it back then, you'd call her like a stage 5 clinger, right? Like that she was like trying too hard. And that's how she comes across here. Right. Not like Caitlyn, who's like the cool girl and doesn't give a fuck.
No, she likes to give oral sex and make lasagna.
Like, I'm quite sure both of you guys fucked around with more Caitlyns than you did Veronicas.
I've only fucked around with one Caitlyn.
What? like not, I know that, yeah, you know what the fuck I mean.
Well, Jay and Silent Bob, a pair of drug dealers who have spent the day loitering outside the store, invite Dante to party with them after hours, but Dante declines considering the various seedy characters the two have been attracting all day. It's actually 3 Caitlyns. Aware of Dante's problems, Silent Bob tersely convinces him that he really loves Veronica, but Randal has already confessed the previous events to her, prompting Veronica to dramatically dump Dante. Dante fights with Randal, trashing the quick stop. So, Ash, you mentioned at this point, this Veronica and Caitlyn, clash, or this decision that people have to make, these two types of people. And I thought this was one of the best parts of the movie. I was so proud of Veronica for sticking up for herself. I thought that it was going to be a Dante and Veronica end up together because she did so much for this dude. Big D, you're talking about lasagna. In 7 months, she moved her school, adjusted her schedule for a guy who works in a convenience store and is constantly like, I know you're bigger than this. I know you can do more. And I had friends like this growing up, women, girls at the time, who I watched sacrifice so much of themselves for these shitty dudes. And it sounds so far-fetched, but no, she's a real person, perhaps one of the most real people in this movie.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we use the term in Lovecraft Country coverage about making yourself small for a man. That's what she does here. She makes herself small for him. And I get frustrated by her portrayal because I had so many friends that were like her that I just didn't get, because I was much more of a Caitlyn than I was a Veronica at this age. And I didn't get this. I didn't get sacrificing all this shit for a dude, especially a guy who clearly is going nowhere, right? It makes absolutely no sense. But I agree with you. I mean, it's a yet another way this movie is incredibly authentic and, dare I say, raw.
You see, and I think this is, again, whatever. Let me just step in the shit here if this goes completely wrong. But I think that women more than men have a habit of trying to fix someone. They're more willing to take on an improvement project. They're willing to take a guy who's got problems. He works at the convenience store. He really doesn't have much ambition, and she can see the good in him and try to fix him up. It's very rare that we see guys willing to do the opposite, that they're willing to do that for a woman. So, I mean, I can admire the fact. I don't think it's making someone small, but I think it's admirable that she sees something in him and is willing to try, but at some point she's got to cut bait and just leave.
Yeah, I had it explained to me once, Big D, by a friend that men want the woman they're with to stay the same and never change at all. Never develop a new hobby, never change physically, be exactly as you were when I met you. And women meet men and they want them to change into the thing that they ideally think would happen. I'm not saying I agree with it, but that notion, I think it does ring true in a lot of ways, at least in anecdotally from relationships I've seen, where almost invariably women that I talk to, they always talk about kind of the potential of the guy that they're with. And then guys are always upset that their girlfriend or their wife is into some new thing or changing in some way. It's not what I bargained for. It's not what I signed up for, which to me is like super exciting, but maybe it's because I was raised by women. I don't know.
I just feel like this is a lot of like men are from Mars, women are from Venus type like beliefs like from this time period, because I just don't buy that. But again, I'm not very typical in terms of like gender stereotypes. Like I don't match like a typical like girl and what girls I guess are supposed to quote unquote do. Because I've had lots of guys that I've been with who tried to change lots of things about me, specifically behaviors like this of me like wanting to be with multiple people. But I do think that a lot of women do it. And I actually disagree with you, Big D. I think it is making herself small, because I have found, and this is me generalizing here, that a lot of women who do this, it's not because they're so nice and believe in the guy. It's that they don't think they deserve better than that guy. And so they make themselves, available as much as possible for that guy because they feel like they can't do better. And that is why I agree with Eugene. I like to see that she's like, well, screw you. I'm going to, stand up for myself here and finally show that I do deserve better.
Yeah, but here's the problem. You're projecting your interpretation onto Veronica. Veronica clearly shows that she's not small. When she finds out that Dante's a dick, she cuts bait and leaves. So she was actually there trying to fix him up. She wasn't small.
I'll just say this. He says he's going to go talk to her afterwards. I guarantee you they got back together. And she made a lasagna the next day. But one character that definitely doesn't change in the whole of the Kevin Smith universe is Jay. I think he's fantastic. And here's the deal. Like, I believe that, it's important for us to watch these movies with like our 90s or 80s glasses on with like this time period. And Jay goes against everything that I stand for. He's a super huge chauvinist. He's disgusting. He uses words that I don't like. But like, there's something that happens to me when I watch this movie where he's got like that awesome, like big, like oversized like jacket, and he's got those baggy jeans, and he's got that super long ponytail, and like he's fucking hot. Like I think he's amazing. I think he's hilarious. I got into this whole conversation on Twitter today about why is Jay hot, because it makes no sense to me, because if I met this guy in real life, I'd be like, fuck you, Jay. But watching him in the movie, I think he's super charismatic and he has the best lines. And in doing research, I found out he ad-libbed most of them. Like Kevin Smith didn't give him a script. He just said, do what you're doing. And he's fucking funny, y'all.
Great. You want to know why you liked him so much, Ash? Because he ad-libbed his lines. It wasn't Kevin Smith saying them. He's in the movie for he has maybe 15, 20 lines, right? But he's your favorite character. Why? Because he's genuine. He's real. He's not a caricature of a New York, Jersey clerk. You just back me up. Thank you. Thank you for coming to your senses.
And on the flip side, I think Silent Bob, who is Kevin Smith himself, is the worst. I mean, I get it that Jay, he's the wacky loud guy, right? So he's got to have a straight man to play off of. But Silent Bob has like all the charisma of a drywall nail. He occasionally speaks, and I guess we're supposed to be wowed by that. Like it's supposed to make us chuckle or be like, oh, he finally said something. But I honestly don't think a non-Silent Bob would take anything away from Jay. Like he could have been paired up with almost anybody and would have been a better combination. Jay plus X is better than Jay and Silent Bob.
It's definitely totally self-indulgent. Kevin Smith is a terrible actor. And I think that maybe if you had somebody else to deliver the lines he has, they might have worked. Like that gag of him finally being so wise, like his Yoda-isms would have worked better. But Kevin Smith is, he had to throw himself in there, I guess.
Yes, totally agree. I would have rather had the Russian cousin. Anybody.
Yes.
Anybody would have been. I found myself interested in his character. I'm like, man, I want to hear the backstory. Is he really a Russian cousin? I want to hear about the band. I wanted him to sing more, right? And then, of course, Kevin Smith has to make it even worse. By the end, he's going to drop some wisdom. But I think there is one other moment in the movie that rang as genuine to me. Before the huge fight where they're having Randal and Dante are talking. And Randal brings up some good points. He talks about how that Dante, he gets into a comfortable place and it's hard to break out of that. The change in your life is very difficult. It's something that I face. It's something that a lot of people face. You get into a job that you like, you're making good enough money, it's hard to push yourself into the place where you're uncomfortable. And this interaction and discussion was something I could have seen any of my friends having, any of us having. And it felt really, really good. And I just wish there was more of this.
Yeah, I mean, Randal definitely, I think it's the best speech here. And I just talked about how Kevin Smith is self-indulgent, but I also think he's incredibly self-aware because Smith is the one who puts this kind of internal monologue that he had about himself and his friends. He puts it to paper here, and it is not just self-aware. I think it's incredibly wise. And this movie is a time capsule for, slacker culture and the stoner culture that gave birth to slacker culture. And I think it encapsulates a lot about that these are people that, they wanted to be better and they were frustrated that they weren't. And a lot of times they were the reasons for their, non-promotion and, the arrested development that they had.
Well, Dante and Randal have a crucial moment of clarity after their fight. Randal hears Dante repeat his refrain that he's not even supposed to be here today and points out that Dante could have left at any time and prevented the day's events. Furthermore, he says they are not as advanced as they think they are, or else they would not be stuck in such lowly jobs. After the two make amends, Dante plans to visit Caitlin in the hospital and try to reconcile with Veronica. So guys, we've talked about the poignancy or maybe the sophistication at this juncture in the movie, but I have to point out that throughout the movie now, I felt like I was watching community theater. And so I looked into that to see if my hunch was correct. And the ideas that served as the seed for Clerks, the movie, were for Smith's high school comedy troupe. And then he recruited his talent for the film from a local theater. And I think the movie suffers for that. Yes, it's admirable that they were able to operate on such a small budget, but this was a clinic on bad acting. Every person in the movie was, I could see them reading their lines off camera, or Big D, like you mentioned, just they memorized the words and then just blurted them out. It didn't feel good.
No, and I can respect the fact of this movie being made on an absolute shoestring budget. But he cheapened it by the people he cast. He cast all of his friends. You have Randal, who is probably has the most lines in the whole movie. It's either him or Dante, obviously, but Randal's played by Jeff Anderson. He hasn't been in anything even worth mentioning other than Kevin Smith movies. He's awful. He's untalented. If you had found somebody else to play this role, somebody who'd actually maybe done a little bit of acting, maybe even was in community theater, Gene, but wasn't in your circle of friends, it would have been much better. He even ran out of people to cast in the movie. I was looking at the cast. There's about 7 people who played multiple characters. Walter Smith plays 4 characters. He is Woolen Cap Smoker, Eggman, Offended Smoker, Cat Admiring Bitter Customer. David Klein plays 5, Hunter Cap Smoking Boy, Low IQ Video Customer, Hubcap Searching Customer, Angry Mourner, Angry Crowd at Door. Did they think we wouldn't notice? Why couldn't you have gone out and found some people who had actually done some acting?
Well, I mean, I know that you guys are hating on Jeff Anderson here, but he was nominated for the Independent Spirit Award for Best Debut of Performance. So I don't know, maybe standards were just lower than or something. But I will say this. I think that when we review movies on this pod, we have to review them from the time period that they were in. And if that's kind of letting some of the offensiveness of Temple of Doom go, or that's, looking at special effects and not judging them as harshly, I think it's kind of our responsibility. And so when I look at this movie, I have to remember that the 90s were a weird fucking time. It was a weird time for people to be growing up. And I think that this movie, there's a reason it's considered a classic, because it is a time capsule for a group of people. Big D, your people, as you so clearly pointed out, your age group. It was a time capsule of those people. And it's this beautiful love letter to those people, to slacker culture, which I am a huge proponent and love a lot of people who were torch holders for slacker culture. And because of all of that, this world can't exist anymore. The internet, millennials, they prevent these people from existing anymore. And because of that, I don't know. I know you guys didn't like lots of it, but I was really glad when this closed that this film still exists, because I think it's really beautiful. And I think a really great love letter to a time gone by.
I'll be very interested to see, because we had Kids, commissioned for Shat the Movies, which came out in 1995, so a year after this, which I think is a far superior movie. And it'll be very interesting to see the difference between the two. So we definitely should remember, put in our memory banks here, look back to Clerks when we review kids.
Agreed.
Yeah, and please, anybody out there, don't commission movies that are in this vein. I'm afraid to do maybe Reality Bites. I think that one would be right up there with this. Or maybe even Singles. I think Singles could be a bad one.
Ethan Hawke and Reality Bites.
Bad run in the mid-90s?
No, I think it's that Janine Garofalo thing. Like, oh, I'm so edgy. I'm so on the outskirts of society. Yeah, it's so hard to be me. It's like
when I think of edgy and on the outskirts of society, the first person that comes to mind is not Janine Garofalo. Like that is like, I think that you don't know at all what you're talking about.
What? Doesn't she play like the tattooed girl on the outside in all of her movies?
She's like a 1970s ABBA freak and Reality Bites, but
this isn't. Oh, okay. So again, I don't remember it.
Winona Ryder, sure, but not Janine Garofalo. But somebody please commission Reality Bites because that's a great fucking movie.
All right. Well, now is the time where we give our Shat score for Clerks. As a reminder, the Shat score goes from 0 wipes to 5 wipes. 0 wipes is a perfect film. It is a brand new pack of Chuli's gum. It gives you delicious flavor in your mouth. In your mouth, Big D, your mouth.
Oh, yeah. Chew
without any cancer risk. 5 wipes is bathroom sex with a dead body of an old man who is reading a porno mag. Big D, we'll start with you. How many wipes do you give Clerks?
Okay, so we should call this movie what it is. I know Miramax released it, but it is at best a student film. That is what it is. This is a student film. And just because it had a wide release and made $3 million, it is still a student film, right? If I spent more than 30 minutes with any of these characters, except for Jay, I would just lose my mind. I would end up either just screaming at them or assaulting them. It would not be, I could not be in a room with, they're just insufferable. I would just hate it. I do think that there is a reality to Clerks. I think sadly it is poorly written. I think the acting is it's amateurish. It is a dick joke vehicle that just continues year after year to receive more credit than it deserves. And I think Kevin Smith's career has gone on longer than it deserves. And yes, he may have refined his skills a bit, but this is no Quentin Tarantino. Don't put him in that same category as, a clerk who came out and made it big in Hollywood, because he is not as talented. And if people go back and watch this again, other than Ashley, I think you'll be shocked at what you find. This is a 3-wipe movie, and that is a gift. Because if this was any other movie, it's 3 wipes, and it's only 3 wipes because it cost literally less than a minivan in the 90s, right? I'm just glad it's over. All
right, that's 3 wipes from Big D, 3 passionate wipes. This is a forceful, rough wipe. You put your face in the pillow and you wipe, boy. All right, Ash, it's your time to score Clerks.
Yeah, I feel like that was the wipe score that like my dad, if he watched this with me in like the mid-90s, would have had for this movie, because I totally am. I don't know. We're so far apart on this because I will admit this movie is indulgent. It is offensive by today's standards, but it is also not of today. And I think it's kind of brilliant. Maybe it was a student film, but some student films are fucking amazing. And this one, I think, has really good bones and some great parts to it. Now, I will say, I don't think most of Kevin Smith's movies have held up. I mean, if someone out there wants to commission Mallrats, I'll be happy to watch it, but I don't imagine I would like it today. And I certainly didn't enjoy Chasing Amy, but I do think that Clerks is set apart from that. I think, like I said, it's this great love letter to grunge slacker cultures of the 90s. I think the acting does suck in parts. Some of the jokes don't hold up, but the movie as a whole, I think, really does. These were, and in some ways are, my people. I loved them. I felt really good watching it. Like our commissioner said, I felt really nostalgic while watching it in a good way. And because of all that, I still think it's a classic, and I think it deserves a classic level score. So I'm giving it 1.5 wipes.
Ashley, if I can ask you, I think the most important question of the evening, is Clerks better than the Duplass brothers, The Puffy Chair? I need to know.
They're completely different films. So
what's your white score for The Puffy Chair?
I haven't seen The Puffy Chair since I saw it at the New Orleans Film Festival in 2005. So I don't know.
Somebody please commission that.
This is angry Big D. Has anybody else noticed that?
I'm not
This is
angry.
like the angriest I have ever seen Big D. He's like, these dumb fucking kids.
Then you've never
They need to
listened
go get a job.
to
real
Spaceballs.
job.
You've never listened to Spaceballs.
Edward Scissorhands.
Edward Scissorhands. You've
Please
never
don't bring
listened
up
to any of
Edward
them.
Scissorhands. Y'all know I've listened to that. It's the only time I've ever done a Twitter rant. Fucking Big D. Mm.
All right, so that's 3 wipes from Big D, 1.5 wipes from Ash, and now it is my turn. I gotta say, this is an utterly pointless movie. It is neither nihilistic nor thought-provoking. It just sort of exists as like, okay, yeah, that was a movie. I didn't hate it. I didn't like it. I thought the philosophical discussions were okay. I really liked the utter disregard for customers, but they didn't play enough on that. And I'll agree with you, Big D. Kevin Smith is just hugely overhyped. I don't get it. This is a big win for indie film. I think it showed a lot of us, and probably gave rise to an entire cadre of directors and film writers who were like, whoa, you can do this, And so for that, I think it deserves, a pat on the back, a little bit of an attaboy, but it's right down the middle for me. This is a 2.5 wipe movie for me. So adding those scores together, 2.5, 1.5, and 3 wipes, is still a pretty tight cluster. We end up with a wipe score for Clerks of 2.3 wipes repeating.
And Gene with a wipe score of 2.33 repeating. That now places Clerks in the 92 spot alone. It is slightly better than Rocky IV and Point Break, and it is slightly worse than the Santa Claus and Young Guns. Yeah, it's Ashley. What do you expect?
What?
See, and I
Break!
The score is a 2.33 and Gene had a 2.5. So our average score is pretty much Gene's score. So it's not just Ashley. And I'm sorry that I'm right.
No, it's because people were wrong about Point Break. That's what it is.
No, I gave it a 0.5. You gave it a 2. Roger gave it a 3.5.
Uh-huh.
It's Roger.
Point Break's a fantastic movie. Motherfucker quotes that movie
good.
all the goddamn time. Justice for Point Break.
Yes.
And Blade Runner.
Totally agree.
All right. And there you have it. That is our score for Clerks. Big D, what do we have coming up next?
Whoo-wee. At the beginning of this podcast, we started 185 or so episodes ago. It seemed like we were the John Hughes podcast. We did almost every single John Hughes movie, and then we just stopped for some reason. But next week, gladfully, we will be going back to the well. And this movie was commissioned by Ferris, and it tells the story of a young student who is overshadowed by her sister's upcoming wedding. Angst-ridden Samantha faces her 16th birthday with typical adolescent dread. Samantha pines for studly older boy Jake, but worries that her chastity will be a turnoff for the popular senior. Meanwhile, Samantha must constantly rebuff the affections of nerdy Ted, the only boy at school, unfortunately, who seems to take an interest in her. It was commissioned by Ferris, released in 1984. It was directed by John Hughes, and this should be a good one. It is a cornerstone of 1980s teen comedies. So tune into the trailer at the end to see what it is.
Well, thank you, Ferris, for that commission. Thank you, Ryan B. in Blackpool, for your commission as well. That's been Clerks, and that concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. You can email us at hosts@shatthemovies.com or support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, completing a free anonymous survey to help attract advertisers, buying our merch, or commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatthemovies.com. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. You can find all that information on our website, shatontv.com, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by iTunes, please leave a review. That helps the podcast grow. One other way you can help us, even if you're not a Twitch viewer, if you have no interest in using Twitch, if you don't even know what a Twitch is, you can use your Amazon Prime membership to actually subscribe to us through Twitch Prime. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it helps out the podcast by giving us a little bit of money every month. So the way to do that is go to Twitch Prime, look us up. You can go to shatthemovies.com/Twitch, go to our Twitch channel, subscribe to us using your Amazon Prime account, and that'll help us out a ton. So we really, really appreciate if you could take the time to do that. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert, Ash Schlafly, and the King Bee, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for the following movie.
So, what's the story? You got a guy or?
Yes, 3 big ones, and they went blood.
Her name is Samantha Baker, and today is her 16th birthday.
Red, she's gotten her boobies.
Oh, I'd better go get my magnifying glass.
They forgot my birthday. Classic. This is the single worst day of my entire life.
Universal Pictures presents...
Score, a direct hit.
16 Candles.
You say it's your birthday. It's my birthday too.
The story of a girl who's stuck with a guy who's driving her crazy.
Nice manners, babe.
And stuck on a guy she's crazy about.
Who's Jake?
Jake Ryan? Jake's my boy. Jake is a senior, and he's beautiful and perfect. He doesn't even know you exist. He smiles at me and I don't say anything. Can't believe I'm such a jerk. You quit feeling sorry for yourself. It's bad for your complexion.
You know Samantha Baker? Catch her looking at me a lot. It's kind of cool the way she's always looking at me. Maybe she's retarded.
What's happening, hot stuff?
His name is Long Duck Dong.
Nothing could shock me anymore.
Underpants.
Can I borrow your underpants for 10 minutes?
Girls' underpants.
Hate that rock and roll rubbish.
Everybody in this family has just gone totally out of limits.
You guys, you just gotta be cool. You just gotta chill out and just be cool. Just watch me.
Why, you little scuzzbag.
I'll let you take Carolyn home. She's so blitz, she won't know the difference.
Jake, I don't have a car.
You can take mine.
I gotta get out of here before anything else terrible happens.
She's stuck between a half-wit
Very hot, very hot.
and a heartbreaker.
I want a serious girlfriend, somebody I can love, that's gonna love me back.
Pretty intense, huh? Over.
Everyone she knows is either on her case
You know you're the one I want to bug, huh?
or out of their tree.
Bonsai!
It only happens once in a lifetime,
This has got to be a joke.
and once is enough.
Happy birthday, Samantha.
This is getting good.
16 Candles.
Samantha pines for studly old boy Jake. Older boy, fuck.
Older boy.
Samantha pines for studly older boy
What are you,
Jake.
fucking Gatsby over here?
That's the old boy.
I pine for you, old boy.
I tell you, old boy.
Oh, you see?